What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to review The Last of Us Episode 1. So, just having come out, I honestly really did like it. I have a couple conflicting thoughts, I guess I would say, about the entire thing, and it mainly is where they choose to deviate from the games. And we've had this discussion before of, how you're supposed to feel or how anybody does feel about when you do it. What I find odd, and I guess, I'll jump right into it, the only thing I'll say is when I find odd when you try to mimic the game almost one-to-one. I think the show does actually a phenomenal job of that. One very early time in the show of doing so is the car. When Sarah, Joel, and Tommy are in the car and the camera angle and, kind of being in the back seat, it's ripped straight from the game. And there's a lot, even from that first, 20, 30 minutes, that's ripped straight from the game in camera placement and literally what happens, obviously, right? But you have some things that I think they pull off really well, but then you have those slight deviations. So like in the game, there's supposed to be the guy, the neighbor coming through the glass window, right? And that's supposed to be the thing that kicks it off. Whereas this one, it's not that. You don't see it through the news story. You don't have the explosion out the window. So there's a couple things that are in the game that are not on the show, and this is, of course, that middle ground where people say, well, Alex, you got to kind of give it to them. You got to be fair to the show, and I guess that's fine, and I do to an extent, but then I also find it weird when you do try to mimic the game one-to-one, and you have the exact same lines, and you have the exact same scenes, but it's only specific things that you choose to kind of deviate from, and not the world, expanding, right? The Sarah stuff, her going to school, her going to the clock fix, the guy who's going to fix the watch, that stuff's fine. That's building out the world. Even the fact that, things don't seem like they're okay that day, right? There's kind of reports in the morning, and then she kind of is, focusing on people throughout the day. Things are clearly happening. That you would expect from a show, right? They're kind of building it. But when you have those deviation points, just is a little weird to me. But going into the positives, I think the show overall is actually extremely good. I want to throw Bella Ramsey as Ellie into the picture, and I don't want to jab at it too much, but you hear some of the talk around the show that they were pretty much explicitly told to not watch or play the game, right? There was kind of like a mandate, and Bella Ramsey had said that, to some degree she did. She actually watched gameplay of it online, and I think you can tell because I think she's awesome, and I think really if you close your eyes and you just hear some of her lines, especially when they walk her, Joel and Tess, when they walk her to their, little apartment and they close the door and she's, what the F, or she's swearing, she sounds exactly like Ashley Johnson, and she really looks the part of Ellie as well. So I think from a believability, like how she looks casting-wise, fantastic. I also think her personality, her persona in this is phenomenal. Now also I would say throw in Pedro Pascal as Joel, even Tess. I actually think everybody in the show is doing, their best. I think Bella Ramsey mainly stands out, and I would throw, Pedro Pascal. I prefer the Troy Baker thing with the Sarah. I think there was a couple extra lines. They kind of extended Sarah's, death a little bit longer in the show than in the games, probably for TV purposes, and I think it just didn't hit the same. It was definitely good, and I give them, again, props for when you see the plane coming and crashing, or you see them backing up in the truck when everybody's running. I mean, honestly, that's exactly the game. They probably, I assume, had the game on one screen and just tried to mimic it right over. So in a lot of ways, and I do think this is an overall thing, I do think the show respects the game so far. I don't know if the entire show will do it. God, I hope so. But I do want to give, praise where they deserve it, where I think to a large degree, the goal is to build out the world, and the goal is to stick very, very closely to the games. And I think for the most part, they've got that completely under control. Some of the different stuff, like with Robert, they really kind of did a shortcut there, and it had nothing really to do with, Joel and Tess. So what you find, I think, in this first episode is a lot of the gameplay removed. And I'm going to be interested specifically for episode 2 because this is the clicker, the iconic scene. Lots of gameplay, lots of fights, lots of puzzles is what they're about to go into if we're looking at the game. Whereas the first episode, you got some gameplay. You're supposed to have had a couple shootouts, right? Joel is supposed to, get his hands dirty, and he does. And I really liked, towards the end where they did the, where Ellie is bit and she shows them and all that stuff. That was great. But it does feel like they took out all of any of the gameplay you'd imagine, any kind of fighting, any kind of, interaction with anybody that would result in that. They took that stuff out in placement of world building and rations and who these characters are and how they connect and Tommy and all that stuff. So I think that's fine. I'm going to be more interested, though, as the show, I was going to call it a game, as the show goes on, specifically in some of these episodes that you can kind of track to the game. How are they going to do it? So this second episode, are we just going to fast track it? Are we going to get Tessa's death in the second episode? Because are you going to skip a lot of the gameplay parts you would have gotten in this section? We'll have to see. But honestly, I was pretty impressed. I was kind of a negative Nancy to the show going in. I would say over the last couple of months, I've become much more positive than I was. When it was announced, when it was filming, I definitely wasn't into it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think everybody gives their all. I want to see Ellie, just more of that, because I think she's phenomenal and easily the standout. And people had said that, right? The people that got early access and that, they kind of singled Bella Ramsey out. I think she deserves it. So I think overall, so far, so good. It's impressive, I would say. It's one of the better I'm not willing to say, like, this is the greatest man-made thing, ever to come, or this is the greatest adaptation of all time. I mean, you don't have that much to compete with. There is a couple things here and there, but so far, at least, taking games, putting into a show. I mean, I watched the whole Halo show. This show, definitely so far, so good, I would say. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I'll see you next week for episode 2's review.